What is going on, everybody? So, as you all know out there, I'm a big horror movie fan. I love horror movies. I always get excited whenever I get the opportunity to review a new release horror movie. And I saw a lot of people on Twitter and online posting about a new Blumhouse produced horror film on Peacock. Is a slasher that took place during the pandemic. And whenever movies take place during the pandemic and that's the central focus, it's hard for me to get on board because it's such an easy topic to put in a movie because it's so relevant. I feel like 10 to 15 years down the line, when it's something you look back on at a really unique and weird time in society, that cool, do that. But I'm willing to take a shot and watch these movies in any circumstance. And the film I'm going to be talking about today is Sick. Sick is directed by John Hyams. In the midst of the pandemic, college student Parker and her best friend Miri decide to self-quarantine at her family's lake house where they will be alone, or so they think. So the main reason why I was excited to check this out is because a lot of people were talking about this film was produced by Kevin Williamson, who is one of the writers for the Scream movies. And Scream is one of my favorite slasher franchises. I have a ghost face tattoo right here. I love Wes Craven. I think that that's one of the most brilliant series of films ever made. And so when someone like that's attached, obviously as a producer, he's not writing the film, he's not on set for everything, he's controlling parts of the movie, but he's not going to have as much of an influence as he did on the Scream films. And what we got with this movie is an incredibly generic slasher film set amidst the pandemic that really didn't do anything that we haven't seen before. You have these two friends. One of them needs to quarantine. They decide to go to the one girl's family's cabin in the middle of nowhere. They have this super luxury cabin that is enormous, and someone comes and stalks them and tries to kill them. And at the beginning of the film, we see the killer stalk and kill this guy who went to the grocery store. They pull a lot of the Scream tropes where instead of a phone call, it's through text messaging. It's not really funny though. Scream is really witty and satirical and playful in a way that I feel like is brilliant. This movie, it was so generic. It wasn't like when your big joke is like the kid standing in line and it's like nice ass and he turns around and flicks off all the people. It's like, it's not really clever. There's nothing really interesting about that to me. And a lot of people online were saying that this movie was so funny, and it was like, there wasn't really any humor in this movie at all. And that was really disappointing. And so they get out to the cabin and they're out there, and one of the girls' ex-boyfriend shows up at the house so that there can be another character that can get killed off at some point during the movie. And then they start getting attacked by this person, and the movie is really just a cat and mouse game with these people. Like I said, this is really formulaic. I feel like even the kill sequences weren't all that great. My favorite part of this movie was some of the way that the scenes were stylized. I think there was a lot of cool camera movements. There was a lot of tension build up in moments that I was really impressed with and that I did enjoy quite a bit. But like, for being so formulaic, and then as far as COVID being the subject matter, when the third act comes and COVID becomes a big part of the third act punch, I started asking myself, well, whose side are they on in this situation? Like, are these people making a commentary about people taking the pandemic too seriously? Or like, it was just so up in the air as to what the directors felt about it. And at the end of the day, I was like, okay, why did you even place your film around COVID except for to make the entire crux of the film based on the pandemic? And it was just stupid to me. It didn't really work out. You know, I think of movies that people really liked recently, like the film Host, which I was not a fan of, but a lot of people liked that movie because it was set around the pandemic and it was people on a Zoom call, and despite it being around the pandemic, its focal point wasn't the pandemic. It was like the pandemic was happening and these things were occurring during it. This movie was so centric on it that it just became kind of grating after a while, where I'm like, okay, if this was made 10 years down the line, it would have been really interesting to look back as like a time capsule piece. It would be really interesting, probably would have paid off a little bit more. But yeah, I don't know, I left this one feeling kind of like I wasted my time. It really wasn't anything all that interesting. The performances were all good. I thought all the actors and actresses did a fine job, but aside from that, it just really wasn't anything unique or new. It didn't really add anything into the slasher genre that we haven't already seen before, and you can take a chance on this one if you'd like, but it didn't really do much for me at all. So have you seen Sick? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you thought. I thought this movie wasn't very good. I wasn't impressed with it. I thought that it was pretty formulaic and run-of-the-mill and just kind of leaned on the pandemic as some sort of subject matter when it didn't really do all that much interesting. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, it helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.